his parka the map showing the minefields. He hoped it was reasonably accurate. It was a miracle that the KGB had been able to produce a usable map at all, though there was nothing to be seen but an empty expanse. Colonel Belson was traversing a part of the most heavily guarded military reservation in northwestern China. The soldier stirred, and Belkin said, "Be still, comrade. Your pain will not last much longer." He was sorry that the single survivor of the three-man patrol he had ambushed had turned out to be only a non-commissioned officer. However, it would have been too much to expect that he might have snared one of the scientists or engineers at the GRU, Soviet Army Intelligence, believed were working down in the marshy sink of the Durfan Depression. Belson turned in the saddle to look to the northeast. The dull light made distances deceptive, but the wind had swept away the bitter dust, and he could see the dark loom of the snow-laden hills beyond the Durfan. A hellish place to have built a scientific installation. The labor involved, Belson realized, must have been immense, but the very harshness of the terrain was a defense of sorts against discovery, and the Siberian storms that swept down from the northeast made satellite observations extremely difficult. Ahead, invincible in the fast day-fading daylight. Fast-fading daylight lay the low hills where Belson had set up camp, his yurt and ring of firestones. In the guise of a solitary nomad, he had crossed China's Xinjiang province from the borders of Soviet Kazakhstan, armed with arrows and a horn bow, a figure belonging as much to the 12th century as to the 20th. On this mission, Colonel Belson, agent of the GRU, became Choi Belson, a nomad Mongol. At a village north of the Durfan Depression, he had questioned the men who spoke to him of a new dragon spirit in the marsh. They were accustomed to the white sky flashes of the atmospheric nuclear tests at Lopnor, to the south of their village. The thing in the Durfan marsh, they said, was different and new, a spirit that spoke to the sky with thin, bright beams of a terrible red light. It had taken Belson 3 weeks to traverse the final 50 kilometers to his destination, avoiding the patrols of the People's Liberation Army, skirting the minefields and electronic devices. And then, 24 hours ago, he had stood in the rim of the Durfan Depression, photographing, taping, and recording. Sorry for the abrupt ending. There's now people here